Welcome to Education Matters, presented by the Public School Forum of North Carolina. I'm your host, Marianne Wolf. Today, we're joined by 2024 North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching, Empower North Carolina Beginning Teacher of the Year, Abigail Bentley, and finalists Samantha Shaw, Cassidy Upton, and Sydney Smith. These educators have been recognized as outstanding beginning teachers, and today they are here to share their experiences entering the classroom and some insights on getting into education as a career. We are so pleased to be joined by Abigail Bentley, the 2024 North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching, Empower North Carolina Beginning Teacher of the Year from Haywood County Schools. We are also joined by runner-up Samantha Shaw from Chapel Hill Carrboro Schools. We are joined by Cassidy Upton, a finalist from Brunswick County Schools, and Sydney Smith, a finalist from Roanoke Rapids Schools. We are so pleased to be joined by each of you. We'd love to start by hearing just a little bit about what it's meant to you to be highlighted. On this show, we often try to lift up the critical role that teachers play. We know how important you are to the kids that you serve, the families, and their futures. And so really happy to have you here. So what has it meant to you to be highlighted? Abby?
Yeah, thank you for having us on. I think that being highlighted as the beginning teacher of the year has done a lot for my confidence. It's such a big honor to be recognized at the state level, and it's really validating to feel like the work has come to fruition. I think a lot of times teachers don't often see or feel the effects they have. Like we might know it in the back of our heads that we have these effects that outlast, what we do day to day in the classroom. So it's really nice to actually get to see and feel the validation in the moment, and it's really reassuring that our efforts are appreciated.
Wonderful. Sam, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what inspired you to pursue this career path.
I was inspired to jump into teaching sort of in a roundabout fashion. My mom was an educator, so I grew up in a school building, always present and being around teachers, but count me out. I was 0% interested after growing up in the school building because I saw all of the hard work and I saw all the dedication and all of very often the lack of trust and respect and value that my mom and a lot of the other educators received that I thought they deserved. So I was not interested in being an educator and wanted to be a writer or an editor or what have you, and have since pursued those paths. I do those things. All of us teachers have second or third jobs. But I ended up teaching at the Washington Journalism and Media Conference over the summer after attending as a student. And that experience up there in DC with 20 high school brilliant people from across the country was a great experience for me to really open my eyes to what it means to mentor students and what it means to build those relationships to help them have the confidence in themselves to go out and be awesome reporters or journalists or what have you. So it was that experience that really reminded me of the value in connecting with kids, even if we don't get seen for that. That's not what matters. What matters is those students and the confidence we can build within them so that they feel seen and like they can go out after high school and conquer the world. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And Cassidy, what inspired you to pursue this path?
So I kind of am like Sam. My mom was an educator. She was a TA. But from a young age, I always knew I wanted to be a teacher because I did grow up in that school building so much. And so I actually came from a family who worked and does currently work in 4 different counties in North Carolina. So we have Rutherford County, Cleveland, Polk, and then I'm in Burke. So my mother was a TA in my elementary school, so I was literally always at the school. I love seeing different classrooms, how they were decorated, activities they were doing, and I loved helping teachers after school. And so I was the little kid that would run around and like sharpen pencils and clean their tables or decorate their bulletin boards. So growing up in a small town elementary school fostered a sense of pride in the educational system, and that has continued today. And so I actually went into teaching elementary art. And so I do have some of the same experiences that I did when I was little. Other than now, I get to lead 718 students in the pursuit of art and building them into little artists and working with them and finding their interest. So it all really started at a young age, having the pride in our school system and continuing that today.
Wonderful. I am also the daughter of a teacher and spent a lot of growing up in classrooms and schools as well, besides my own education, obviously. So I can picture all the things you're saying very vividly. I'd love to hear a little bit, Sydney, about what your experience has been like as a new teacher. And just as a reminder, these are all teachers across the state that have been nominated and were finalists for the Beginning Teacher of the Year. And so just wonderful to hear what this experience is like early in your career. Sydney?
So I would say my experience as a new teacher has been deeply fulfilling and also filled with support. I've been extremely fortunate to start at a school that fosters that safe community and positive community as well. And it's just been a dream come true to inspire that love of learning with students each day that I get to see the growth both academically and personally. It just makes every day worthwhile. And I'm just so thankful to my students for inspiring me, teaching me, motivating me to be a better educator each day. And honestly, I don't think I could think of a better beginning to my experience as a new teacher. And again, that's thanks to my students, my supportive coworkers, and my great school district.
Wonderful. And Abby, can you talk a little bit about what your experience has been like? I know you teach science in high school, but also you're taking on a new role and teaching a new class next year too.
Yeah, so my experience, I'm going to echo a lot of what Sydney just said. I think that a lot of my motivation and a lot of what brings me joy every day is seeing the success of my students and seeing them grow. Again, both personally and academically, it really is both of those together, and they're equally as fulfilling, I think, to see. I have also had a really wonderful experience as far as support goes within my school, which has been excellent. So in Haywood, and I think this is pretty consistent across beginning teacher programs for the state. But we have a beginning teacher mentor for the county that was instrumental in my success. She was really, really valuable as far as like offering feedback for my observations. I had an in-school mentor that was assigned to me who is a veteran teacher of 25 years and incredibly skilled in the content area, which is aligned with mine. It's biology. And so I was able to get, feedback on lesson plans and support and supplemental materials when I needed that. And so I think that altogether has really been so important in creating the educator I've become and will grow into as I continue in this career path. Um, and I think as I take on new roles, like teaching my leadership class and working with our SGA, our student government students, I think that I will always keep that in the back of my mind of what other people have done for me and what service that they have offered to help support me in my growth as an educator, because I will kind of pay that forward both to my students and to other educators that come into our system, that anytime I can help, I'm going to try and lend that hand because of how generous people have been for me. And I think that's ultimately like what working in a public school is all about. It's about fostering that community and making sure that our students are cared for in a variety of different ways. And I love the school I work for. I think is a wonderful demonstration of that. We have such a tight knit community that supports the school at every event, whether it's during the school hours or off school hours. So I feel very privileged to work in this setting, and I think it is really because of everybody's efforts that I've been able to be so successful.
Wonderful. And Sam, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced as a beginning teacher, but also what's made the biggest difference for you in kind of facing those. And, I know this is the end of the year, and especially, well, I won't even say especially for high school teachers, because I taught elementary, and I know the end of the year is challenging in different ways. Both you're sad to see students move on, but then you're also know that it feels like summer outside. And so I'm curious, Sam, what your experience has been, if there's any challenges you think others can kind of learn from too.
That's a great question. As I walked in the door into the beginning teacher training, of which we had 3 days in my district, I had already actually had 2 months of being a long-term sub in the classroom in which I had previously been student teaching. So it was almost a year of work with those same students. So I like to think I got my first year under my belt before my real first year. So I worked out a lot of those kinks during that time with, as you've heard from these other wonderful people, with all of that support that I think is part and partial to what makes us great beginning teachers, is because of the people in our building and in our community who have loved and supported us through that. But the best advice I got from my mentor teacher that I took into that room when I walked in day one was, don't take work home. And as an English teacher, right, you think about grading papers over the weekends, or you think about the wide variety of lesson planning you could do over the weekend. And I am a recovering perfectionist, so was definitely one to fall into that trap. But I learned from him, and I do not take any work home. I do it in the school building, even if that means I get there at 7 a.m. and I leave at 5. But I do it in the building. I don't do it on the weekends on my own time. And that has made me a better teacher because I can pour in with all the energy I have to my students during the day. And then I can pour into me over the weekend and at night to recover as an introvert and become the best version of myself. So the best advice that I got from my mentor teacher was that to set those boundaries and not let the pressure or the perfectionism or the desire to be the best educator you could possibly be, which is scary and in all bold font, and we all want to achieve that, but to be that version, we have to also be our best selves. I have to be Samantha and Miss Shaw, which was really good advice, and I'm grateful I haven't fallen too deeply into that trap. But that definitely could be a huge challenge for beginning teachers because it's hard. It's hard to do the work we do.
Cassidy, do you have other challenges that you face this year that you think are just helpful for people to hear as well?
So one thing that was probably hard for a little bit of all of us for beginning teachers is classroom management and student behavior. I think that is something that is reoccurring for us beginning teachers as well as veteran teachers. But I think what has made the biggest difference is just having ample support, like we have talked about, from my peers. My administration has been absolutely wonderful with this. One thing that my principal always says is a lot of times the behavior is not against you, but is because of something that is going on within the students. And I feel like when she told me that, it was just like the biggest eye opener, because a lot of times as beginning teachers, when a student starts acting out, whether that's throwing something or whether getting mad, a lot of times we take it personally. And I think that is because we do come from an area of perfection, that when we think everything has to be perfect and then something goes wrong, it's because of us. But we have to take into consideration all of our students. We're not just teaching, I'm not just teaching a little artist, I'm teaching a whole child.
Thank you so much. We'll continue our conversation with these beginning teachers of the year after the break.
Education Matters is brought to you each week in part by Participate Learning, uniting our world through global learning.
I'm going to switch gears just a little bit on like thinking about North Carolina as a state. And I just can't say how grateful I am that each of you is a teacher and just how you're inspiring students. We know that across our state, we have had more vacancies, and our pipeline, or our talent pipeline of people going into teaching, has decreased recently. And Sydney, I'm wondering if you have thoughts on what our state can do. Our state has a lot of responsibility for education in North Carolina. I'm wondering if you have thoughts on what our state can do to support our educators to improve both recruitment and retention.
For retention, especially, and recruitment, I think things as simple as just improving working conditions can definitely help a lot. Making sure facilities, classrooms are up to date, and just providing every teacher with a safe environment that they feel comfortable in. Something as simple as that.
I think another thing too is, in addition to making sure that we have adequate support for our teachers, from both the administrator perspective and also from like just a staff perspective, having the facilities, as Sydney was saying, to make sure that we have, even just materials to be teaching the content that we are supposed to teach. I think that when I break down my classroom budget per semester, I have like $1 per student to spend. And it's really not aligned, I guess, with the vision of what people anticipate going on in a science classroom. So I think making sure that teachers have the budget to create the experiences that are expected of us is a really important one as well. There's obviously also, the more talked about aspect of just increasing teacher pay. I think that is a discussion that is going to continue to be had, because as a lot of us probably are aware, North Carolina has one of the lower starting teacher rates in the country. And so I think collectively, those are all things that we need to consider when trying to recruit and retain more teachers. Overall, I think that our day-to-day conditions just need to be improved if this is going to be an attractive career for people coming into the field.
Wonderful. And Sydney, I know there's a lot of conversation out there about schools and how schools are doing post-pandemic and all of those things. And I wonder if you could share why you love teaching in a North Carolina public school.
I love teaching in North Carolina public school just because the community aspect. So at my school in particular, I grew up here and I've just been surrounded by this area my entire life. And I am in a pretty rural area with the Roanoke Rapids graded school district. Um, but just like seeing other districts, like the community here is so strong. So I would definitely say it's probably my favorite thing.
I love that. And I always say the public schools are the hubs of our communities, right? And each of you is certainly showing us that. I want to give each of you a chance to share what advice you have for those that are just beginning their journey as an educator or those who are interested in becoming an educator. And Sam, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think my best advice for someone considering being an educator is reach out, become the person of many questions. That's what my mentor teacher called me, was the girl of many questions. And don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, because that's the only way you're going to get what you need, is ask for it.
Wonderful. Cassidy?
I would advise anyone that is thinking about going into teaching as a future career to make sure their heart is in it. Teaching is a tough job and it takes a special type of person to do it. You should have a heart that is full of compassion and love and drive, and have that drive to make a difference in students' lives. But if your dream is to become a teacher, do not let anyone discourage you from pursuing it. When I excitedly told people that I was pursuing an education degree, some people tried to talk me out of it. But if I would have listened to them, I would have missed out on one of the biggest blessings of my life. And so far as that is that I'm building the first elementary art program in Burke County, and I'm working to build up my program so that it'll spread out. And none of that would have been possible if I had listened to the people who was discouraging to me.
Wonderful. Sydney, what's your advice?
The biggest piece of advice I would give is just to remember the why, remember why you chose to go into the field of education, whether it's a passion for your subject, whether it's passion for working with children, or whether it's just that desire to make a positive difference. Ultimately, that is going to be what guides you through any troubles that you may face. Also, just remember that any failure or mistake that you make doesn't define you as an educator. But what really matters is your purpose for showing up each day and learning from those mistakes. So just keep that fire going and remember why you show up each day.
Wonderful. And Abby, you get the last word here. What's your advice?
I think it's important to acknowledge that teachers' goals for their students are going to vary depending on what year they are in their teaching journey and who they are teaching and what content they're teaching. And so it's important not to compare what you are doing in your classroom to other teachers. And I think it's important to kind of set your own vision of what you want your school and your classroom to look like for your experience. And so that will involve being in a constant state of reflection and learning and modification. But I think that's the best advice that I could give, is just to make sure that, again, you're being kind of true to what your vision is in your classroom. And as long as you know you're showing up and doing your job, to not compare yourself to others.
Wonderful. Well, it has been a true treat to get to spend time with each of you. And I know the children and families across North Carolina are absolutely blessed that you are in our classroom. So thank you for what you do every single day.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After the break, this week's final word. Last month, we celebrated Teacher Appreciation Week. Teachers were given messages, tokens of appreciation, honors, and celebrations to express the sometimes unspoken gratitude those impacted by their work feel. For many educators, this reminder that they are appreciated and respected was much needed. Education is a demanding career field, and in recent years, it's also become a controversial one. However, just 1 week is not enough. If we truly want to value our education, we must do so throughout the year and at every stage of our teachers' careers. Uplifting education as the invaluable profession that it is vital for both retaining veteran teachers and continuing to attract highly effective new teachers who can work with students to succeed for years to come. Our 2024 North Carolina Beginning Teacher of the Year, Abigail Bentley, and finalists Samantha Shaw, Cassidy Upton, and Sydney Smith exemplified just how impactful beginning teachers can be. In the brief time they've had in the classroom, they've already been able to build connections with students and colleagues and demonstrate the capacity to be leaders within their school communities. These are the kind of educators we need. These are the kind of educators who can touch the lives of decades worth of students when given the right support. Unfortunately, it will become increasingly more difficult to find this kind of educator if we don't act quickly to address North Carolina's struggling teacher pipeline. The number of students enrolling in educator preparation programs has decreased in recent years. To fix this, we must address the perception and the reality of the teaching profession through competitive compensation and opportunities for career advancement, and we must address unnecessary barriers to enter the profession. Also vital to continuing to be able to staff our public schools with effective educators is supporting them. Even the most outstanding teachers face burnout. This has always been true because teaching is not an easy job, and many teachers go above and beyond for their students. However, added stressors such as the still very potent effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and the politicization of schools have exacerbated teacher burnout. This is especially true for new teachers who in many cases can feel immensely and immediately overwhelmed. Teacher turnover has been high in recent years, and a large number of those leaving the classroom were first-year teachers. We simply have to do better at providing teachers the support they need, whether that be measures to increase capacity, stronger working conditions, prioritizing mental health, so that they can have long-lasting, fulfilling classroom careers. By addressing the issues facing North Carolina's educator pipeline and providing educators with the resources and respect owed to them as professionals, we can build a diverse, highly effective teacher workforce that can serve countless students, and we can retain those teachers so they can eventually serve as mentors to the new teachers who come behind them. That is how we show teachers that we appreciate them, by honoring the profession and making sure that it remains a viable one for those with a passion for education and for our children who need teachers able to guide them to success. Thank you for taking time with us to learn and think about education. That's all for today, and we'll see you next week.